The world of organized crime is deadly, and not everyone can rise to the top. But these 5 drug lords certainly proved their mettle. Too bad they couldn't beat the justice system. Number 1. Dexter Lee Williams. Meet Dexter Lee Williams, a Georgia man arrested in March 2020 by the Houston County Drug Investigations concerning a shipment of 39 kilograms of cocaine, worth nearly $4 million. The prosecutor in the case said that he'd never seen such a massive amount of illegal drugs brought in one shipment alone. But it shouldn't have been surprising if you consider Williams' history with drug dealing. Business was good until things went south, when law enforcement officials intercepted his cocaine shipment. Investigators also found $284,000 in cash during Williams' arrest. During sentencing, the judge stressed how Williams was part of the problem that many drug addicts he had seen in his court were dealing with. Drug addiction leads people to commit heinous acts they wouldn't otherwise, and the easy access to drugs on the streets is the main reason addiction-spurred crimes never cease. However, Williams remained unfazed throughout the sentencing and didn't show any emotions, even though he could face up to 60 years in prison if convicted. Williams' attorney, Wanda Jackson, argued at trial that prosecutors overstepped their boundaries and brought down the charges improperly. Jackson also contended that Williams wasn't part of a Houston County conspiracy and had only sold drugs to a Macomb man. However, Williams' prior criminal history, which included a 37-month prison sentence for marijuana distribution, made the prosecution's job easier, and the judge found him guilty on all counts he faced. Unlike Williams, our next drug lord didn't hesitate to show his emotions when handed down a stiff sentence. Number 2. Benjamin Bundy. If you think Benjamin Bundy is related to the notorious serial killer Ted Bundy, get ready to be disappointed. While Benjamin Bundy shares the cursed last name of Ted, his area of expertise is drug trafficking. Bundy dealt drugs in New Hampshire, but competition between rival dealers forced him to push boundaries and invent new ways to sell drugs. Intoxicated by the lust for power, Bundy began experimenting and lacing his drugs with the highly addictive substance, fentanyl. As shocking as that may sound, Bundy ended up killing Mateo Nichols, 28, in December 2014, but that wasn't Bundy's only crime. He was also responsible for aiding the suicide of his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Jennifer Azara, the girl who was only 31 when she died of a deadly dose of heroin. The Bundy in court was a stoic young man who refused to show any emotions whatsoever. However, as one after the other families of the victims delivered their victim impact statements, Bundy broke down into tears, finally realizing the severity of his actions and how they had ruined the lives of others. This was a grim court moment, with emotions running high as families of the victims mourned their loved ones, and the man responsible for their deaths took responsibility and showed heartfelt remorse for his actions. Bundy understood the implications of the charges against him and took a plea deal, admitting to everything. The judge finally sentenced him to 15 years in prison, hoping he would become a changed man. Bundy accepted how his choices had affected other lives, but not every drug dealer is the same. Take the next one on our list, for example, who refused to take responsibility and blamed the justice system for corruption. Number 3. Wallace Bigger. Meet Wallace Bigger from Antrim County. Convicted of several drug-related felony charges, Bigger ran a tight network where he would send thousands of pills to northern Michigan and distribute them through dealers. The drug operation used morphine and dilaudid pills prescribed by a doctor in Saginaw, which were then sold out of trailers, campers, and an apartment above a pizza store in Mansalona. When we think of drug lords, we picture an influential person enjoying every luxury in the world. However, Bigger's drug cartel didn't make him rich at all. In fact, he barely got by. According to testimony, Bigger earned over $20,000, which might seem like a large sum initially, but if you spread it out over a couple of years, the income appears negligible. If Bigger wasn't making good money, why would he continue dealing drugs? The funny thing is, Bigger's attorney thought that revealing his poor financial condition might work in his favor in court, but his plan backfired when the judge said, "It came out during the investigation that Bigger married a now 34-year-old woman during his time as a drug dealer. And if you're wondering how a 71-year-old landed with a girl half his age without having any money to his name, you should know that she was high when the marriage vows were exchanged. She didn't even recall the marriage. That's the extent of Bigger's manipulation tactics." While Bigger showed no remorse for his actions, our next drug lord reacted very differently, as his life took a shocking turn at sentencing. Number 4. Aaron Andrade. This is Aaron Andrade, a Providence man who admitted to murder for his role in the overdose death of a 29-year-old Cranston woman. Kristen Kautu was found unresponsive in her mother's car, parked on Hubbard Street on February 17, 2014. It was later discovered that she had taken a lethal dose of heroin, laced with the powerful painkiller fentanyl, provided by none other than Aaron Andrade. The mood inside the courtroom was grim, as Kautu had recently gotten off drugs and discharged from a treatment facility in Texas just 2 days before her death. She had told her mum she would attend an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and grab dinner with a friend the night of her death, but instead she reached out to Andrade. Kautu's mother delivered a searing speech in court, leaving everyone in the audience near tears, including the judge.
The person that I had loved with all my heart for 29 years died alone in a car on a lonely street from bad heroin sold to her by a drug dealer who probably made about $20 from the sale.
Although Andrade was the culprit who caused Kautu's death, he looked disappointed in himself and remorseful of his actions. He apologized to Sue Kautu and his own mother for the pain he had caused. Aaron Andrade pleaded no contest to second-degree murder in the death of Kristen Kautu and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. His behavior in court was welcomed by Kautu's mother, who found solace in his apology. Andrade's indictment for murder over his involvement in Kautu's overdose death was a first in Rhode Island, since the lethal fentanyl had claimed hundreds of lives in the area. Number 5. Charles Rome Crosty. Charles Crosty, better known for his street name Rome, started his New Richmond heroin business 4 months after getting out of prison for trafficking. Crosty sold heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine through drug addicts, but it wasn't a job addicts were happy with. In fact, they resented it because Rome was infamous for his beatings and intimidation techniques. He would physically assault his dealers and force them to sell his drugs. He sounds like a drug villain out of a movie, doesn't he? Although Rome's rap sheet was full of drug charges, his behavior in court was the most surprising part of his case. Crosty kept giving everyone a death stare throughout the trial, as if trying to intimidate them into a lenient sentence. Unmoved by Crosty's silent aggression, the prosecutor explained to the judge how his illegal operations had affected the lives of everyone in the community. The prosecutor proved Crosty sold heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine to a confidential informant in the presence of juveniles multiple times during the first 2 months of 2016. Crosty was also charged with trafficking heroin to multiple people for distribution into Claremont County. The judge found him guilty of 11 counts of drug trafficking and 1 count of engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. Charles Rome Crosty was sentenced to 20 years and 9 months in prison. You can assess Rome's influence on drug distribution from the fact that overdose runs and deaths dropped ever since Crosty was taken off the streets. How did he react to his sentence? It was the same face he kept throughout the trial, although it seems he was unable to intimidate anyone with that death stare. The drug lords on our list knew what was coming for them, but these dirty cops were shocked at getting completely exposed in court.